teatro proprio.
This story happened to my Aunt Layla when she was only 5 years old. Smart beyond her years, she was the most talented of her 6 siblings. Perhaps that played a cruel trick on her. Layla. Honey, go to bed. How many times have I told you not to crumble food in bed? Exclaimed the girl's mom, her voice full of worry and concern.
Mom, well, it's just a little cookie, I'll finish it quickly now.
I've told you many times it's bad luck. It's how you can attract
Genes, demons, shaitans, all sorts of evil things. I remember, Mommy, but those are silly fairy tales, I don't believe in such things anymore.
Layla interrupted her mother and smiled broadly, dimples immediately appearing on her face. Sweetie, I know you're the smartest girl I have, but please obey your mommy and go to bed. Mommy asked and kissed her on the top of her head, hugging her daughter tightly before going to bed.
Okay.
Layla agreed and hugged her mom back. Love you, Mom said and closed the door. As soon as the girl heard footsteps departing, she reached for the second cookie she had managed to hide and took a bite out of it with childish mischief. As she bit into the cookie, Layla kept thinking about how her mom was very kind and smart, but she definitely should have checked for other treats under her pillow.
And actually, Mom needs to stop believing in fairy tales.
There was a knock on the window. The girl's heart beat faster. She looked toward the window, but saw nothing unusual. Only the branches of the tree were swaying in a strong gust of wind. Ah, it's just the wind, she thought and felt a great relief. Calming her excitement, she adjusted the blanket with her small hands and leaned her head back against the pillow. Her eyes had already filled with lead and her body relaxed under the warm blanket when she heard.
Did not Mommy tell you not to crumble food in bed?
Someone in the room said. The girl opened her eyes abruptly and her body went numb with fright. For a second she thought she had already fallen asleep and it was just a dream.
This is not a dream,
the creature said in a calm voice.
And why are you eating in bed? You should have listened to your mom. We'll have cookies too.
Something in the room laughed evilly. The girl was too afraid to move. Goosebumps ran along her skin, and fear stiffened her body, preventing her from speaking. She took a deep breath and counted to 3 before trying to speak.
Who are you?
She said it in a quiet, trembling voice.
I'm nobody special. I'm just an ordinary person. You call me by different names. Demon, Gene.
He said with a grin and whispered right into her ear.
Are you afraid of me?
He spoke louder and touched her shoulder. Layla felt a cold sweat trickle down her back, and her heart was beating so hard it felt like it was about to burst out of her chest. She wanted to scream, but her voice wouldn't come out, and she only managed a quiet sob. Layla had never felt such terror in her life. She was begging her mother to come in, but she couldn't get the words out. She was unable to scream because something invisible was holding her back. It was behind her, breathing in her ear and touching her shoulder. She could feel the claws digging into her skin, leaving bloody marks, but she couldn't move. She couldn't bring herself to turn around and look at him.
You are wondering why I came to you, aren't you, young lady? Come on, look at me.
The monster whispered, squeezing her shoulder harder and harder. His voice was low and hoarse, like it was coming from the depths of hell. Layla closed her eyes and told herself,
This is just a dream. He's not really here.
Layla's inarticulate mumbling only irritated the creature. It pressed harder against her shoulder, repeating,
"Open your eyes, look at me."
Its voice grew more and more sinister, penetrating to the very depths of her consciousness. He looked at her with a clear interest, as if she were an animal that could help him get through his boredom. Layla was still, her body no longer under her control. She was terrified and couldn't get any air. She couldn't breathe. Every attempt to inhale caused pain in her chest. She was unable to move even a finger, and this led to feelings of despair.
I should have listened to my mom,
She repeated to herself. The monster reached out and grabbed her by the throat.
"How do you see me? I'd like to know. Do I look like I'm going to scare you?"
It giggled, enjoying her fear. Layla had already stopped thinking straight. Her brain was starved of oxygen, and she was slipping into unconsciousness. The creature suddenly released her neck. At last, she was able to take a deep breath. As she exhaled, the girl was already looking at the demon with anger.
why are you here? What do you want from me? Leave me alone.
She let out a scream, her voice trembling with fear and anger. The creature seemed to find the girl's hysterics amusing. It started moving around the room really quickly, dropping books and toys and smashing porcelain dolls. Laughing evilly, it kept repeating the same thing.
"You called me. You called me, Layla."
The girl was confused by the creature's actions. What did it want from her? Was it going to eat her, kill her, or scare her? The unknown was more frightening than anything else. The creature stopped moving around the room and stopped right in front of her. It said,
"You don't realize it yet, but we can access your soul."
Its voice was harsh and ominous.
What does that mean?
Layla quietly asked. Layla whispered, her voice trembling.
"You can see, know, and hear things that other people can't."
I don't understand.
The girl had finally stopped understanding anything. Her body was still trembling with fear. The demon let out a smirk, jumped up to the window, and said,
"I'll back later, young lady. Go to sleep."
His words had the desired effect, and Layla fell asleep almost immediately. When she woke up in the morning, she immediately went to her mother. She burst into the room, not realizing that dawn had just broken, screaming and crying. She didn't have the energy to give a full account of what had happened. All she could say was,
He was there. The demon came to me, choked me, and broke my dolls.
The girl's parents couldn't understand what happened to her that night since she was sobbing nonstop. But they didn't hesitate to go check her room. Layla wasn't keen on going in and stayed outside the door in her mother's arms. She was gently stroked on the head and hugged tightly, repeating, "It's all right, don't be afraid." But the room was just as they'd left it. There was no sign of anyone else being there, and even the window was closed from the inside. The dolls the girl mentioned were also undisturbed and in their usual places. Layla's father had looked around the room a few times but hadn't been able to find anything to back up what the girl said. There were no signs of strangulation or cut wounds on her neck. The doctor said it was probably sleep paralysis and the child's imagination playing out. However, phantom pains in her shoulder haunted her for a long time. Until one night Layla was told again,
"Hello, young lady."